we just had the recent developer livestream for the finals, and there was actually a ton of insightful info in there surrounding Season 9, and even of future ones. We'll check out all the context from the actual live stream itself, the audio version, and the chat. Additionally, we'll cover some community updates and a whole bunch more. What's up, world? Utopia here, back in with another video. Today we're checking out all things the final. Okay, so jumping right to it, we did have that dev live stream, which they labeled last stream of Season 8. This time around, though, it wasn't Oscar. We actually had a surprise guest host here, which was actually with Joakim Stigson, and they are a lead environmental artist over at Embark and working on the finals. So really cool here, we get some developer insight this time via the audio and not just in chat as well. He does go on to explain why the host switch actually did happen here, as this was supposed to be with Oscar, but apparently he was a little bit too exhausted and emotional from the major weekend. But again, this one is quite nice because again, they do focus on making sure that they have nice things and fun maps to play on. So hearing right from the world director itself, that does give us a ton of context to go on. Of course, before we get onto that though, they did want to give their gratitude from the majors, and they thanked everybody for viewing, coming out, or just supporting the finals in general, of course. He even went on to say that people were sitting on the floor, there was people standing, someone that had to stand for like 8 hours. So basically, it was insanely crowded. So they were very, very thankful for that, and they said the team had an absolutely amazing time. Of course, we did round out here with some Season 9 stuff, with the first one being around the new mode, Point Break, and kind of their mindset on how they're treating this new mode. So Stigson kind of hit on some few points here, saying he's super excited about it, it's very chaotic, and they're going to continue to iterate on it. He also hits on that feedback matters a ton to the team, so when it does get released, they do want a ton of feedback on it, as they will continue to do post-launch changes where need be, or altercations if they have to, and of course kind of help with the balance of that mode in general. So very cool to see. As I mentioned, it does seem like a more casual kind of playstyle, like Power Shift, and that's kind of why I like that one and enjoy that mode. This one honestly might be my next go-to. Now during the stream, he also did hit on some Season 9 map insight. He mentions that each area actually offers something very unique, both visually and even from a gameplay perspective. As in the background, we did see that there's like kind of a showcase of it being like a China megacity. We said there's traditional buildings right next to these skyscrapers. And kind of my prediction was right here. Some areas are going to offer that nice close quarter combat, very dense, while other areas are going to be a lot more open and offer that long range. So we might see a major mix match of different weapons here, where teams might even need to rethink their strategies for this one, where some people could actually be rocking melee weapons or just close quarter weapons in general, and even adding a sniper on your team where it doesn't feel like they're kind of hindering that in general or for certain maps. This one could definitely play more into that. A couple of the last things that Stigson did hit on here was some of the map fundamentals and even their real-world research trips that they take, where he did hit on here that the team does normally visit all of these places they try to build. Like they even took a trip out to Bernal, it's a small town in the middle of Mexico, and a few of them did go there. And in a lot of locations they did visit, of course, you actually do need to ask permissions to take photographs. And again, hitting back on this one last time here, we saw a lot of that photography happen back in July. That's kind of how we at least somewhat speculated and knew a China map was coming. And yeah, now nearly 5 months later, we're seeing it all come to fruition. So very cool to see overall. Next up here, we have the chat section of the stream, and there's actually quite a lot here. The first one's fairly simple. It hits on some of the things that we're going to see in Season 9, which yes, of course, is those sponsored changes. Embark Dusty does answer this one, saying that next season you'll be able to finish your tracks and jump around with the sponsor event. So yeah, you can swap your sponsorships whenever you'd like. You can jump to the next one to get certain rewards and then hop around. There will of course be some sort of optimization path with that, but that does give a ton more flexibility here for things that you want to earn and snag. The next one here is a massive hot topic around the anti-cheat. I know this one has been talked about a ton, and back with it is Embark Dusty going over that anti-cheat is a never-ending battle, one that they're not backing down from. Cheat makers get caught, change tactics, then get caught again. There's lots of money that get pulled around for cheats in general. The scene is pretty wild out there. They do also mention that they're never going to stop fighting them and adjusting to their changes. Recently we saw Denuvo get activated, and they have a really good anti-cheat system now. They're actually using a bit of AI and machine learning with that. A lot of companies recently are doing it, and it's been helping a lot there. So I do think over time we will see less and less, which is really good to see. Another one here, and occasionally I see a comment about, is TA, or Terminal Attack. Is that ever going to return? I know a lot of people really disliked that mode, but there was actually a decent chunk of people who did like it. Well, we finally have our answer, at least somewhat of an answer here from Embark Dusty. She goes on to say that the TA community is of course amazing, and that she thinks it'll come back someday, especially as an LTM perhaps, but currently they don't have plans for it right now. Guessing they do want to wait a bit, they want people to kind of miss the mode even more. Bringing it back right now after they've kind of got over that phase with it, yeah, I think it's a good decision for it to kind of put it on the back burner. But I can imagine 6 months, a year from now, people might actually be asking for it back, or at least wanting to try it again. At least that's when I could see maybe they try to sneak it in for an LTM, or even do some modifications to it to make it more casual oriented. The next one here has actually been a very hot topic lately. That's of course because Embark has released their second game, Arc Raiders, and there's been a ton of questions how this works, how the studio does designate different teams there, if there is different teams, if everybody's working on one game or the other. Well, we actually have 2 pieces of context on that. The first one here comes from Embark Dusty. She mentions here that they have a full team that supports the finals, and they're not planning on slowing anything down there. They still have plans for many seasons to come, so don't worry there. Just because they released Arc Raiders doesn't mean their team is going to change shape or size with the release of that game. In fact, Embark has actually been increasing their team size quite a bit. I believe the studio was around 100 employees at one point, then it jumped to 200. Of course, we don't know the 100% accurate headcount there, but according to their LinkedIn, they have over 300 game developers now. So their team size has been increasing, not downsizing. So just because Arc Raiders released didn't mean that they were going to have a slower dev cycle here. I also mentioned we did have additional context here. This one this time comes from Embark Janice, which actually gives a ton of insight here how the dev team does work. She mentions that some of us work on both games, some of us only work on the finals, and some only on Arc Raiders. I do remember way back in the day, I believe we had this same sort of comment where they mentioned that teams did alternate back and forth. Some would help work on Arc Raiders, some were going to help working on the finals, and they would rotate those teams. I do believe, and I'm not sure if this is still standing, but that teams would never work on both games at the same time. So what I'm guessing with the added context there is that some teams will work on Arc Raiders for a little while, then they'll get rotated and work on the finals for a little while. But maybe that philosophy has changed and maybe they do help with both. We don't know for sure. Still really cool there. Again, they have way more employees now than ever, and they've even jumped up more. Last time I checked, I believe they had around 200. So now that they're at 300 plus is pretty insane. We had another question here asking about some other maps in the future could see with different seasons. This one pertaining to a Brazilian map or Brazil map. Embark Janice again answered this one saying they don't have any plans for that right now. But some of the insane news here that Embark Dusty did answer, this pertaining to future seasons as well. She went on to say that last I saw was season 19 on their roadmap. But that was a while ago, and she was hoping that Gustav would eventually give them an update to that timeline. That's pretty insane. Again, we're on season 9 right now. They have planned up to season 19. And that's around 2 additional years of content. They still want this game to be a 10-year game. That's been their plan with both of their games. But the fact that they have a roadmap leading to that right now, and even just kind of having that in placeholder, really does showcase how far ahead they actually look with this game and how much future content they do have planned. Now you might be asking, where was Rob this stream? They definitely didn't want him to spoil anything, but he did stop by once, thanking everybody for TGM. He did also give a huge shout out to everyone that couldn't make it. So again, hitting on the gratitude there and thanking everyone that could make it, or if you couldn't make it, you tuned in, etc., just supporting the finals in general. Although he did make one comment, it seems like he couldn't help himself here, but he asked here to Stitchson if he was able to add something to season 9 or during season 9. Now I'm not going to try to pronounce these, this phrase is quite long here, but it essentially does translate back to that red painted wooden cottage, which is a very Swedish countryside aesthetic. We've hit on this one before, but it looks like in future seasons, I would guess probably not in season 9 of course, but I would guess for future seasons we might actually see a Sweden-based map. I do think that's going to kind of tie into their medieval Viking season. Again, we have no idea when that's going to happen, but there's been so many teasers of it at this point that I do believe that's still probably going to be a thing. As Rob has openly said, they want a medieval Stockholm old time map or old town map. Again, we will have to wait and see, but that for sure sounds like it will be in the pipeline. Overall, that's about cover for today's video. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe, and until the next one, deuces.